Alright guys, so in today's video we are going to talk about capital allocation for agency owners. Now, you might be wondering what the hell does capital allocation mean? It sounds like one of those fancy like banker terms, and that's because quite simply it is. Well, capital allocation means where you allocate your capital, where you put your money. Now I'm going to be talking to you specifically as an agency owner, and there's some things that are, the thing is, if I was speaking to someone with an e-commerce brand, if I was speaking to someone with a gym, for example, my advice would be very, very different. But like 90% of you guys on this YouTube are either currently building your agency or have a successful agency, or you are, on the cusp of starting and diving into building an agency. So capital allocation is something that I feel as though not a lot of people touch on. Most people focus so intently on how can I, get more retainers for my agency, how can I increase revenue, and then also, how can I, increase profits. I guess they go hand in hand. And one of the beautiful things about owning an agency is profit margins are just ridiculous, because at the end of the day, it is a service. It's not a product, it's not a commodity, it's nothing like that, it's a service. So with that said, before you can start thinking about capital allocation, where to put your company's money, and take company, I'm gonna say company right now, but take company with a pinch of salt, because look, be on the other side of this and you may be like, dude, it's literally just me, like what are you talking about company? But look, if you have 10 employees, if you have a team of 5, or if you are just on your own, this is still applicable to you as long as you are an agency owner. So before you can start thinking about like, where do I put my money? Where do I put my, my resources? Where do I allocate my capital? You gotta actually have capital and money to put away or put into different buckets, etc., etc. And this brings me on to my first point. I had a private consulting client of mine. I pretty much never do one-on-one consulting, only for people that are like really, really promising and it's very, very high ticket. I pretty much only do one-on-one consulting with my agency clients because, they're like 7, 8, 9-figure businesses, so they can actually afford it. And I was, consulting this guy, coaching this guy on how to use his personal brand to leverage more coaching gigs. He was trying to build up his coaching business, etc., etc. And, this guy was doing around like, I'm not gonna say his name, he was doing around like 15, 20, 25K a month. And I was like, okay, cool. Cash flow's looking good. You've got a good, healthy business right there. And, in one of our last coaching sessions, I asked him like, hey dude, how much money do you have in the bank? I'm like, you don't need to tell me precise number if you're uncomfortable with that. Reason I ask is simply because like, I need to know, you've got this money coming in, where should we allocate it and where is it put best? And to my shock, the guy told me, yeah, I've got roughly $7,500 in the bank. And I was like, just blown away. That is not a healthy business right there. And that kind of brings us full circle back to the point, which is please, 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 put some money in the bank, put some money away, because as I said, you can't start thinking about where should I put my money most effectively if you have no money in the first place that you've put away. And we'll kind of come back to that point. As an agency owner, one of the beautiful things, as I said, is kind of like the fact that like we have such high profit margins. So one thing that will always be, ever present as an agency owner is software. If you run any sort of online business, you're gonna spend a bit on software. Now, as you start to scale your agency more, you can start to bring on new sort of expenses. I have a thing called like Typeform, and I pay like $24 a month for it. And it's like Google Forms just does the same thing. I just like the style of Typeform more, yet I spend in a year like $300 on a software, So as you start to grow your agency, you can start to do shit like that, that's like, you can upgrade softwares and, but when you first start, just bootstrap, use Google Slides, use Canva, use Google Forms, use like ClickFunnels free trial, use like there's so many different things that you can just freaking like bootstrap it with when you first start. And that's the beautiful thing. But one place as an agency owner you always need to allocate a little bit of capital to is software. So now with my agency doing around $45,000 per month profit, monthly software costs, I would say come up to roughly, not that much, I think roughly around like $300. We've got like Typeform, ClickFunnels, Loom Pro. Once again, I don't even need Loom Pro, I just get it because like I love the free version of Loom so much. I'm so happy with that. There's a software called Quaya. I think that's how you pronounce it. That's for running ads, creating new ad variations, stuff like that. Overall, I think it comes out to like $300. So agency that's pulling in roughly $50,000 per month in revenue, to spend like $300 on software, pretty good. So one place you always need to allocate or leave a little bit of a budget to allocate some capital to is your software, and that's going to be ever present. So the next thing, once you have your software, is your team. The beautiful thing, once again, about agency is I always tell my customers in six-figure SMA and people that come to the Marine Mastermind, etc., is whenever a client signs, you bill them straight away. Okay, I always start work after a client has paid the invoice. Let's just say, for example, I signed a client on January 1st. January 1st, I receive the payment, we onboard the client, and then at this point I have one full-time employee for my agency, and I have a second that works for like my agency and my training business. So I would say I have like technically 1.5 employees, but my point is I actually have employees now, so it's a little bit different. But for most of you guys, if you're using contractors, your contractor might be charging you per client per month like $700 or whatever to deliver whatever service, whether that be like email marketing or like Facebook ads or Google ads, whatever service you're actually delivering for your client. So the best part is you bill the client on day 1, and then on day 30, your team member, your contractor, they bill you. So that's really good, healthy, positive cash flow right there. That actually allows you to create something called float. We don't really need to go too in depth on that, but float is the reason that, say, someone like Warren Buffett has a lot of extra capital to invest and front because of a business like Geico. So, that kind of creates a little bit of like a 30-day float for you. But once again, we don't need to go too in depth on that. My point is, with team members, there's no thought, there doesn't need to be any thought in your head about capital allocation, because you get paid on the front end, they get paid on the back end. So like you don't need to think about that ever as a expense or somewhere that you need to assign your money. So really what makes up an agency is software, is team members, and that's really it. That's the beautiful thing. That is really it. The profit margins are just through the freaking roof. So now, because as I said, you don't need to worry about your team because they get paid on the back end, hopefully you bill on the front end. Software is the only thing you need to think about. And then after that, now you're in this beautiful position, whereas a gym owner is like stressed through his freaking mind because he's got like all these like expenses and stuff that he knows are coming through, payroll, etc., this, that. And he can't like, a gym owner has actual employees. He can't tell his employees, oh, if we get a certain amount of gym memberships, I'll pay you at the end of the month. So, that really causes a lot of stress for a lot of these other businesses. But with you are in this golden situation right now where you are starting to collect cash. Now, especially when you start as an agency owner, the best investment you can make is in your self-education. Now, I sound like 99.99% of motivational fucking idiot speakers out there. Invest in yourself. Self-education is the most important, blah, blah, blah. But like, it's actually true. And let's sit down logically and think about it. In an e-commerce business, the thing that is driving sales is paid traffic or influencer. A lot of people do influencer stuff, etc. But like most of the time it's paid traffic. In order to pay for that paid traffic, you need some money sitting in the bank. Whereas with an agency, most of the stuff that you're doing when, your outreach, whether you're doing cold video outreach, you're doing email outreach, you're doing cold calling, you're doing LinkedIn, you're doing, you're building a personal brand and getting inbound leads, like none of this stuff really takes any money. So this leaves you in this beautiful position where you're sitting on a lot of cash. And that's why I say, especially at the beginning, the only person driving you forward at the beginning as an agency owner is you. Like, you are the main lever, you're the main variable to your agency's success. So why not improve yourself? Now here's the thing, if I was talking to an e-commerce business, I would say, okay, no, like the most important thing you need to focus on is paid traffic, scaling your paid traffic. But as an agency owner, it's different. We're using pretty much all free methods. So really the best investment you can make as an agency owner is in yourself, in your own education, and in giving you that information to drive your agency forward. Now, once you get to around 20, 30, 40K a month profit consistently, my best piece of advice is spend money on paid traffic to either grow up your social platforms. If you go look at a guy like Gary Vee, spends millions and millions on social ads to grow up his social platforms. Once his social platforms are freaking huge, then from there he can command huge retainers from clients paying like 200, 300, 400, 500K a month for marketing services because he's Gary Vee. So that's number one. And that, to me, that's like, you can do that. because it's kind of easier to run ads for that. Or what you can start to do is you can start to build an auto acquisition funnel, a case study funnel, or a webinar funnel. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 different ways that you can get agency clients through paid traffic, and then you can start spending money on there. You'll probably lose, a couple $1,000s when you first start, because it's quite hard to get right. If any of you guys want to watch my case study funnel, the one I personally use for my agency, it's like right down below this video. I think there's a link to my website, or maybe even the case study. I don't know if I've changed the links at this point, but there'll be a link to my website, and then on there you can just go view the case study or whatever. So that's a place that you can put your money as you start to grow and as you start to scale, as you start to want to get clients on autopilot. Now here is the place that I would honestly say, after investing in yourself, is the second most important as an agency owner. The best place to put your money is back in your bank. And here's why. One of my favorite sayings is the hungry don't get fed. Let me repeat that. The hungry don't get fed. Like me and Bob, I'm sure a lot of you guys know Bob. We joke about it all the time. The hungry don't get fed. Whenever we see someone taking certain actions or doing certain things, we're like, ouch, the hungry don't get fed. And basically what the hungry don't get fed means is that, don't you find it funny that say someone like Gary Vee, say someone like Gary Vee has so many fucking people hitting him up saying, hey, let me do this free work for you. Let me provide you value. Let me do this. Let me do that. And the funny thing is, Gary Vee of all people is the least, is the person that least needs it. Yeah, your standard ordinary guy that just is starting to build his agency, you would never be like, oh, let me buy you lunch, let me do this free service for you, and then if I'm good, then you can pay me, etc., etc. The point is, the hungry don't get fed. People who are in this scarcity mindset, people smell it from a mile away. Abundance attracts more abundance. And I'm not someone who's very airy fairy, super spiritual. I am quite spiritual, but not super spiritual. A little bit too airy fairy, but it's just simple psychology. It's social proof. It's social proof and sub-communication. So when you go to pitch agency clients and you're pitching a retainer for 5K, 10K a month, and they smell that you need it a little bit too much, one of the reasons that I've had good success in my agency and I continue to get really high ticket leads and high ticket clients through the door is because and a good place to check this out is go check out that case study funnel, as I said, and you will see it it's totally transparent. The fact that I really don't give a shit whether I get that person's business or not, because I'm sitting on good money in the bank. And here's the thing, if you put 2 scenarios through, 2 people with the same skill level, 2 people with the same sales level, ability to actually sell their service, and you send them to the same client, if one person is sitting on 30K in the bank, one agency owner, and the other is sitting on 3K in the bank, which one do you think mentally, psychologically needs it more? It's the one with the 3K in the bank. And the funny thing is, as I said, the hungry don't get fed. The people who need it the most never seem to get it. And that's that abundance mindset that it's just so important you hold through your life. It's funny, the first ever, or at the time of recording this, the only tattoo I have, this says my cup runneth over. What my cup runneth over basically means is I have more than I need. I am abundant, and this tattoo meant a lot to me, just because of some of the things I went through as a child, some of the things I saw, some of the things I experienced. It wasn't great. And it's funny, one of the things my mom always instilled in me, she came from the Soviet Union, one of the youngest of 7 children. And she always said, Iman, take everything you have because you never know when you're gonna get more. And when you're the youngest of 7 children growing up in the Soviet Union, that's true. But when you are living in, the 21st century in a first world country with all this opportunity to us, you really need to remember stepping into a meeting that if you lose that client or you don't get that deal, it's totally cool. You got tons and tons more. And even if you have a dry month, most agency owners get so desperate. And when you get desperate, you get into that really shit place where you start signing agency clients that you shouldn't sign, where your sales is off because a potential client will give you some sort of rebuttal or some sort of pushback, and rather than just dealing with it calmly, you're suddenly starting to chase them, and you're suddenly starting to just trip over your words, and just as I said, most people, they know that they know if you need it too much, and if you need it too much, they don't want to be that person. That's why I love this phrase so much. It just encapsulates everything that I'm trying to say here, which is the hungry don't get fed. So to sum up this video, if you are an agency owner, you're trying to grow your agency, you're starting to get some positive cash flow, and you're looking like, where should I actually put this money? And you really should be doing that. First things first, throw it in the bank, because as I said, the more money you have, the more in the bank, it creates this flywheel effect. If you ever read the book The Everything Store by Jeff Bezos, and also Good to Great, I believe that Jim Collins' Good to Great, you'll understand what I mean by flywheel. The funny thing is, the more clients you sign, the more money you can put in the bank. The more money you can put in the bank, the easier it is to sign clients. And when you go into meetings, like, they can tell you don't give a shit whether they sign or not. They can tell you they care about, you care about their business, you want their business, but you're willing to walk away at any moment. And when they know that, like, you're the right person for the job. So yeah, number one, put money in the bank. It's actually gonna make your sales skills a lot better, and it's gonna mean that you've got that level of security. And number two, invest in yourself, because the thing is, as an agency owner, it's different to a gym where there's like all these different expenses, employees, etc., etc. A gym, or even say something like an e-commerce brand, where you need some sort of traffic, some sort of traction to drive the business forward. It's totally different with an agency. With an agency, we've got really high profit margins. We've got a lot of money to sort of play with and put where we want. So the best place to put it is in you, because you are the main driver of your business. Whereas say something like an e-commerce brand, paid traffic is the biggest driver of their business. So always remember that, always keep that in mind. And guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.